everybody. You're here at Select Roses. My name is Brad and I have my garden helper Sally with me here today. We wanted to do another video talking about planting the bulbs. Mostly tulips is what we love doing here, but we have planted daffodils and some muscari and other types of bulbs. But today we're going to go over tulip planting in containers because we had a few questions on that. So first things I want to tell you is the soil mix. It's important to have a porous mix. So we have what is called a soilless mix here. This is a mixture of bark. It has cocoa fiber, perlite, pumice, and things like that. So it's a very loose mix. If you're growing in a container, it's important to not use regular garden soil because it will just become compacted and it won't drain well. So Sally's already filled up our containers about half full so that we have plenty of room on the top of it. She's also added a little bit of slow release fertilizer or Osmocote. We've used a little scoop here, which we call a number 4 scoop, and that is about a small handful. So it's been put in here like this, and I will have you, Sally, show people how we just incorporate our slow release mix in. So you just toss it in a little bit. The reason we're using a slow release mix, even though it's not a growing season, is that slow release mix will basically be sitting there through the winter and it works by temperature. As things warm up in the spring and the bulbs start feeding a little bit, they're going to get a little bit more of the fertilizer, and we find they do much better that way than just throwing in a handful of bone meal. We will also use our starter food at times as well, depending on the type of mix. This already had the starter food added to it, so that's why I haven't added any more of the starter food that you've seen in our other videos. Okay, so we've decided on these containers to blend 2 different types of tulips together. They're a Lily Flower Tulip. They're absolutely beautiful. They're mid-season. The one is called Elegant Lady. Take a look at that. She's a beautiful cream with a pink to ivory stripe up the side of it. The other one is a beautiful red, deep waxy red. It has the same shape of flower, and that one's called Lasting Love. One of my favorite tulips. So we'll show you how we plant these in here. So Sally, if you want to grab some of our Lasting Love tulips. It's important to plant the bulbs with the little pointed side. I'll grab one here. There is the bulb, and you see that's the flat base of it. That's where the roots are going to appear. So we'll be planting it with the pointed side up. So we have already planned out roughly how many we need in the container. Our blend is going to be about 2/3 of the Lasting Love with 1/3 of the lighter colored one, which we call Elegant Lady. And usually I find when I'm doing one of the blends, I use more of the darker colored one and a few less of the lighter colored one rather than a 50-50 mix, and it gives you just this punch of color so that they all look outstanding together. The odd time you'll come across a bulb that has a little bit of mold or something like that on it, and people have asked me, gee, should I throw that out? Is it a bad thing? Give the bulb a squeeze. If it's a firm bulb like this, it's totally fine. That's going to bloom, no problem at all. And the other thing is, the brand that we've used over the years has been Florissa brand, and they've done an outstanding job for us. You'll find Florissa brand all over Canada. The bulbs have always been healthy. We plant thousands and thousands a year, never had a problem using them. So I'm gonna let Sally continue to plant this here with the Lasting Love. And what I will do is take the other variety and I will go in between. So we'll fill up our container. Sally will work on that one. We'll work on this one here. And we have done a row of, let's see, we have about 5 of these containers, all along here with the same bulb in them. And what I find is if you're doing sort of matching containers on your deck, rather than changing from one flavor to the next in each container, if you can see what we've done here, we have one solid row. This all has the same blend in it, and it comes off much more effective if you do it that way. Now, when we'll change to another part of the nursery, some other containers, we'll change to another bulb there. And in that the same 3 pots, we're going to use the same blend all over again. Oh, I'm missing out on my job here. I will add a few of these in here. Now take a look down here. You can see that we plant pretty heavy in a container. A lot different than in the garden. If you're planting in the garden, the package probably says I'll have you take a look on there, see if it gives us a spacing. Usually they say 6 inches apart or something like that. In a container, we plant them much heavier. I want them jammed full. You put a few more of those ones in, Sally, please. And then I'll show you how we'll cover them up. And around 6 inches, 8 inches, something like that, you can cover with the soil mix, and the bulb is going to come through there. I believe they bury them a lot deeper back east. A couple things I've noticed. Okay, if you want to grab some soil, Sally, that would be great. When we do them in the containers, you make sure it's a porous mix. You make sure that you have really great drain holes down below. This container, go ahead, and we sprinkle them over the top. Your first few scoops you go in, you don't want your bulbs to be tipping over, so you put them in gently, just the way Sally does. Have your helper sprinkle them over like that. Thank you. And we'll keep building up on top of them here. What some people do is also add another layer. And if you had a very early blooming one of the little narcissus that are February gold or something like that, once you're a couple inches above these bulbs, you could put another layer of bulbs in too. I usually choose just to do the one like this. That's great. So we'll put those in there like that. Rather than boring you to the final finish, we're going to leave it like this. And we will tell you though, if you look at our other container that's full over here, Sally will come along in a little bit, and we have about another inch or so left, and we'll add straight bark. The reason we're going to put straight bark on the top is to prevent weed growth in the winter time. So it's just ground bark we're putting on the top of it. Oh, and we'll also, before we do that, another little sprinkle of fertilizer in there. Again, just the slow release type. The bark goes on top. That also seems to prevent the squirrels from wanting to dig through. They do love tulips, so it's really important to cover them up. After that, we will let them, or we'll water them in or let a couple rains fall on them, and then we're going to put a sheet of coroplast or anything you have at home. You could use wood, a piece of wood or something like that, and put a couple weights on them. That way the squirrels can't get to them at all through the winter. Very important though, once you notice, check through February and March. As soon as you notice them starting to poke through the ground, you take the cover off of them. And at that time, use one of those organic repellents and just mist the bulbs, usually once, and the squirrels will leave them alone. I usually find when I do the bulbs in the containers, I'll get 1 year out of them, and I'm pretty choosy on how I like the pot to be nice and full, so I toss those in the compost or give them to somebody else. You could leave them for a couple years, let your containers dry out in the summer. The bulbs will just go to rest in there and they'll come back the second year, but they're usually not quite as full the second year. If you go to daffodils, it's very important to have large containers. The daffodils I find not quite as hardy. So when we've had a cold winter, even a pot this size is going to freeze solid. Think about that. If we hit -10, it's solid throughout. Tulips, no problem. The daffodils don't seem to like it so much. Anyways, that's all we have on bulb planting today. Sally, thank you for giving me a hand as always. I'll go and have a cup of tea and let Sally finish all the work out here. No, we'll both finish the work. And thanks for watching. We're going to talk about bulbs one more time this season, and in the next videos you'll see us pruning some roses, topping them off just a little bit. We don't do a lot of pruning in the fall. We'll be tying in climbers and things like that.